Chris Foster, and today I'm going to be showing you how to go from one of these 3.5-inch floppies to one of these, which in this case is a pen holder. Now, before we get started, 2 disclaimers. First off, we're going to be working with things like power tools, noxious chemicals, irritants, open flames, paintbrushes, some pretty dangerous stuff. So please, don't be stupid, be safe, treat these things carefully, don't get yourself hurt. Honestly, if you get yourself really hurt, you're doing the gene pool a favor. It's not that dangerous, but, you know, you're working with some sealants and that kind of stuff. Don't do it in an enclosed space like a small bedroom. You know, don't run a power tool through your hand. Don't use open flames indoors. All that kind of stuff. Yeah, don't listen to me. Follow what I say, not what I do. In any case, the second disclaimer. This is art. And like with any art, is pretty subjective. If you're happy with what you end up with, you know what? Good for you. Do what you want. It's all about what you feel is right, what you feel looks good, what serves your purpose. So hey, follow my thing as a basis, but make it your own. Have fun with it. Alright, before we get started, I'm going to go over a little basic setup of what you need. Of course, first thing you need is 3.5-inch floppies. They're pretty cheap. You can find them on Amazon. Good luck finding them in an actual electronics store. But sturdy little plastic things come in a variety of colors, shapes, translucents, all that kind of stuff. You'll need a variety of mounts, the more the better. For what we're doing today, you'll only need 5. But if you want to do like pixel art with it or something, you'll need a lot more, like 30, 40, so on and so forth. You'll also need a good pile of plastic zip ties. Tie wraps, zip ties, any kind of plastic fastener, tie fastener. Go to Home Depot, pick up a bag of a couple hundred for $2 or so. They're really cheap. You'll also need your favorite type of super glue. I'm using Gale Force 9 stuff, but any super glue, instant bond sealer will work. You'll also need a power drill with what's called a uni bit. You can also use a standard drill bit. I just find this easier for what we're doing. Your choice. For anything past that, you'll also need a set of wire clippers. Standard, basic stuff. For anything past what we're doing today, you're going to need things like a lighter, some paint, maybe, a kind of sealant, waterproof sealant. This is Mod Podge, a paintbrush of any type, you know, variety of stuff, and your imagination. Imagination. Anywho, alright, first thing you do when you get started is we're going to be preparing the zip ties. What we're going to be doing is we're basically just going to be making an open-ended cube. So what you do is if you look at your 3.5-inch floppy, it's got one hole in the bottom right-hand corner. It'll usually have the locking mechanism in the other corner. And you can pull that down to give you a second hole. Problem is, there's no holes on this side. So what you do is you take your drill, and you're going to drill out 2 more holes. Luckily, on this side of the floppy, the back end, there's 2 small holes on each side, which act as a guide. Basically, just take your drill, put it in the hole, and now, it's careful to only do it when it pushes through once, otherwise your hole will be a lot bigger. You might accidentally scrape the end of the floppy off, which means it wouldn't look right, it wouldn't hold together, but, you know, not a big issue. Now, to make things look cleaner, you want to flip the floppy over and just really quickly run the drill again to clear out some debris from this side. And you'll end up with 2 neat holes sitting here. So you got a pretty even drill. Now, you'll need to do this to every floppy you're working with, and that would take a while. Luckily, I already pre-drilled a good stack of these things, so, you know, we're good to go. It's almost like I thought this out. In any case, what you're going to do is, what I ended up doing was putting the outside of the floppy out, so the cube builds like this, with the front of the floppy facing in towards the cube. So, you put that down as your base, and what you're going to do is you're going to build it such that the front of the floppy, the top with the slider, and the bottom have floppies on top of them. These sides have the floppy like that. The other 2 sides, so the sides of the floppy, if you're looking at it straight on, are going to have it the opposite way. So that the outside walls are on the edge of the floppy. They're not on top of it. Now what you want to do is you basically just want to take your two floppies together, and you want to feed a zip tie through the two holes in the corner, like this. Just feed it all the way through. It can be a little clumsy to do. Gets a little better after a while. Anyways, put this down and pull it tight. Make sure it stays in the position you want it in, and pull the zip tie tight. You want to do this to both joints. I'm going to warn you now, this is going to be the longest part of the sew, so if you already get what I'm telling you to do, you might want to skip ahead a bit. And of course it helps if you don't drop what you're working on. In any case, get that together, pull it all nice and tight. And you want to just do that to both sides. I find it easier to do it on opposite sides, but whatever you feel works best for you. As you can see, it's not terribly hard to do. Might want to have a TV show on while you do this, something, you know, maybe watch a movie, put some music on, chat with a friend, something entertaining. Pull all those little ties, and down to two more. Now, like I said, these are going to go on. As you can see, these are outside. So it is going to be a little bit off of the cube, but it's not that big of a difference, and it just helps to the stability of the cube. Otherwise, we'd have to make some freehand drills, which is just a bit of a pain. So, just keep feeding it through however much you feel like. What can be helpful is just feed it through one hole first, feed it through the second hole, get the zip tie in and started, and then put this into position before you pull it tight. Because once you get it tight, it's going to be really, really hard to move it around. So, it can just be a bit easier that way. Now, the holes on the side are going to have one zip tie through them already, and they're not going to be quite straight on. But it's okay, zip ties are pretty thin. So just keep feeding it through. Just catch it on the other side, feed it back through. They're also very flexible, so. You just kind of cheat with the cube. Now, if you're doing some other shapes, it's easiest just to, you can do this because, like I said, zip ties are pretty cheap. They come off really easy. Use this to plan what you're doing. Hold some things together while you go through and move it piece by piece. That kind of stuff. See what you're building first. As you can see, the cube's starting to take form. It's not really a difficult shape to master. We're past kindergarten. At least I hope all of us are. I hope all of us are. Otherwise, well, this is going to be a really confusing video. But hey, not my problem. Alright. Now the important thing you want to do is you want to make sure all of your joins line up as straight as possible. You shouldn't be able to see anything. They should be as flat as possible. It's not going to be quite perfect, but it'll be alright. But if they're not even, well, it's not going to hold together very well once you start gluing. And you'll see that in just a minute when I finish this last wall of the cube. And for any of you who are thinking of the psychotic horror thrill movie, The Cube, or possibly Cube 2, Hypercube, or the prequel, congratulations for being a movie nerd. I am proud of you. To anybody who's thinking Ice Cube, well, I'm much less proud and slightly disappointed. Don't think of Ice Cube. Alright, I'm almost done putting these together. So once you're done, before you start gluing, just make sure everything's in place. You can kind of fidget it. Even at the tightest you can pull it, there's still going to be a bit of play, just because of how things work. But if you did it right, as you can see, this one's not quite on right, but I could push a little bit and just kind of pull it into place. So now, as you can see, if you did everything right, the joins are kind of look good. It also kind of looks like the laminate configuration from Hellraiser, but we'll fix that in a sec. Alright, so what you want to do now is you want to take your super glue, flip it over. Now, this is why you don't work in an enclosed space, because super glue in large amounts stinks. It stinks a lot. It stinks very, very, very badly. So have a fan on, have an open window. If you're used to the smell of super glue, well, good for you. Anyways, what you want to do is you want to take the glue and go along your edges and very carefully with as little glue as possible, you just want to glue the edges together. Just kind of use the nozzle of the super glue to pull it along. Try and be careful not to glue these zip ties to the box. You can pull them off, but it'll leave a little white mark there where some of the plastic residue got, and it won't look quite right. Also be careful not to touch the super glue. Seems pretty obvious, but, you know, you'll be walking around with a thumbprint little cast on, and it kind of sucks. But it happens. To help the super glue dry, you can also blow on it, because the glue is moisture activated, and we're going to be using a lot of glue, so it's not going to dry very quickly. So make sure to get all the joins. To get a good mix. Now it's not going to be quite even, like I said, but what you want to do is you can also push it when you glue it to try and give it a little better of a thing. You can also tighten up your zip ties just a touch. I glued myself too. Peachy. If you get some glue on your fingers, just go like this, rub it a little bit, give it a little friction. It'll tighten up and stop being so tacky, which can be a pain when you're trying to hold things in place, because your fingers will pull them away. Anyways, get all that glue on there. Not running out of glue. Careful not to let the sides of the cube that you've already glued touch anything you particularly care about. Anyways, if you do it right, you should be able to glue most spots. Now the reason you don't want to get glue on the side of the thing is glue is shiny. It will look very wonky. So you preferably want to glue it from the inside, which I'm just not doing for time constraints. Or you want to glue it from the outside and just use as little as possible. You can also put on a matte sealer afterwards, which will make it stop being so shiny. Now, that's going to have to sit for a while. The easiest way is to let it sit on the outside of the table. So, what you want to do is just let that sit for about half an hour. And we'll come back when it's dry, and we'll show how it finishes up.